Week 10 fantasy football running back rankings tier list, going through my top 40 overall running backs for the week to help you set your fantasy football lineups, usage, injuries, trends, all that good stuff. Let's get right into it with the bye weeks. We do have 4 teams on bye, which means no Javonte Williams, no Chase Brown, no Tony Pollard or Tajay Spears, and no Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt. Those teams are on bye this week. We do have a lot of injuries to get through, so I'll keep it short and sweet here. Who's out for this game? Ramondre Stevenson officially ruled out with a toe injury, missing his second straight game. We already saw Trevion Henderson get the majority of the work last week. He sees an upgrade. Bucky Irving out again with that foot, probably the shoulder injury more likely though. He is out for week 10 and maybe not back until week 12, week 13, based on what I've seen from fantasy docs around the industry. Rachaad White will assume the workload as we've seen. Questionable players that we do actually have some legitimate concern for. DeAndre Swift is listed questionable with that groin injury. Of course, he did miss week 9's game, and he was downgraded to a do not practice on Friday after practicing in full on Thursday. Now, it does also say personal, so it's possible that's why he was downgraded. Roschon Johnson is off the injury report, so even if Kyle Monengai gets the majority of the work, Roschon Johnson was out last week, so it's possible he would eat into Monengai's workload. But regardless, if Swift is out, it appears it will be the personal thing, I would imagine, not the groin injury that he was dealing with and came back in full on Thursday, unless he re-aggravated it, which we haven't heard at this point in time. So DeAndre Swift, I would say listed questionable and probably a true like kind of 50-50 game time decision as of right now. Maybe by the time you guys are seeing this, we have word that he's expected to play or he's not expected to play, in which case I will update anything that changes in the pinned comment down below. Aaron Jones, shoulder injury. For his status of week 10, he was quoted as saying, "I feel good, continue to take it day by day. Still have 2 days to go, so we'll feel like we're going to be in a good spot." Did not practice Wednesday with that injury. Limited Thursday and Friday. Typically, that's somebody who's going to be a game time decision or a true questionable and maybe limited to some degree come game day. So I would say as of now, I would expect Aaron Jones to play, but maybe be limited in some regards. So obviously a large upgrade for Jordan Mason if he is out. But if I had to start one of them, I would start Aaron Jones, assuming he's active with not a lot of limitation. And then Alvin Kamara, keep an eye on him. He's questionable for week 10, limited practices all week with that ankle injury. I think he should be fine. A couple of other injuries that we were monitoring, but that look like they're okay. Saquon Barkley with the groin injury before the bye. He's good to go. He is practicing in full back-to-back days. He plays on Monday, so we'll see what happens in today's practice. And I would guess that he carries no injury designation for Monday Night Football. Josh Jacobs with a calf, feels good, should be fine for Monday as well. James Cook popped up earlier in the week with the do not practice on Wednesday with an ankle, but he should be ready to go according to a lot of beat reporters. Make sure to stash Ray Davis just in case. And then Quinshon Judkins suffered a shoulder injury before the bye, but he looks like he will be good to go. And he did practice in full this week and actually wasn't even on the injury report. So moving into the tier list itself, starting off with the elite RB1s. And as far as like usage is concerned, I'm going to try and only highlight usage for relevant players instead of showing you guys usage for everything from fantasylife.com. I'm going to just show usage for guys that it matters for, because it'll save us some time here on these videos and I can get you guys on your merry way a little bit sooner. So running back one of my rankings this week is Bijan Robinson at the Indianapolis Colts. They're actually in Berlin, so even though it's a Colts home game, it is in Germany. They are 16th against fantasy football running backs. It's the same game for these top two guys because Jonathan Taylor is my number 2 running back this week. The Colts defense faces the second most red zone plays in the NFL, which is a good touchdown opportunity for Bijan Robinson in a 48.5 point over-under game. So Bijan should have a bounce back performance. Hasn't scored a touchdown in a couple of weeks. I think he finds the end zone in this game. Number 2 running back for me is Jonathan Taylor, same game environment, 19th ranked fantasy football defense against the running back position, the Atlanta Falcons. By far, Jonathan Taylor's worst game of the season last week against the Steelers. Definitely due for a bounce back in this game. Colts are implied for 27.5 points, and they are 6.5 point favorites in Germany there, so it should be a good game environment for JT. Number 3 running back for me this week is Devon Achane versus the Buffalo Bills. He gets absolutely fed receiving work anytime he plays Buffalo because the Dolphins are typically playing from behind. They're 24th against fantasy football running backs. He's caught at least 7 passes in each one of his last 3 games against the Buffalo Bills, dating back even to last year. And one of those games didn't feature Tua Tagovailoa. So this is a game environment that we expect Devon Achane to catch a lot of passes. It's a 50-point over-under in this game as well. So Devon Achane, one of my top running back plays of the week. Christian McCaffrey versus the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams still have only allowed 1 total touchdown to running backs this season. None None of those touchdowns on the ground. Ironically, the touchdown they did allow was in week 5 against Christian McCaffrey. It was a receiving touchdown there. But the Rams, one of the best run defenses in football. In fact, number 1 in football in adjusted fantasy points allowed. And Christian McCaffrey did have like 80 receiving yards and a touchdown in that week 5 game, but that's pretty much the only good game a running back has had against them. So Christian McCaffrey has to be downgraded just a little bit. In this one, it will be Mac Jones again starting for the 49ers. Number 5 running back for me is James Cook at the Miami Dolphins, 26th against fantasy football running backs. As I talked about already, he dealt with an ankle injury on Wednesday, but it does look like he is going to be ready to go. DNP limited and full on his practice reports this week. Just make sure to stash Ray Davis just in case. If he re-aggravates that injury, the ceiling is there for Ray Davis to really take over as the talented starting ball carrier for the Buffalo Bills. So whether you roster James Cook or not, make sure that Ray Davis is rostered heading into this week because ankle injuries can be finicky. And if he re-aggravates it, maybe he gets put on IR or something. I'm not wishing that, of course, on James Cook, but it is something worth to note with Ray Davis as a stash this week. James Cook should go berserk in this game if healthy, though. Bills are implied for nearly 30 points, which is the most on the Week 10 slate. Number 6 running back for me on the week is Jahmyr Gibbs at the Washington Commanders. They are 13th against fantasy football running backs in adjusted points allowed. Speaking of implied points, the Lions are the second highest on the slate with 28.75 versus Mariota and the Commanders. Please tell me seriously how Gibbs and Montgomery aren't going to go berserk in this game, because I can sense a 200-plus yard rushing day from the Lions. I can sense a 3-plus combined touchdown day from these two running backs. It's just a take care of business type of game for Detroit, and I think that Jahmyr Gibbs will be a large part of that. Moving into the next tier of running backs, these are the solid RB1s, every week starters. Josh Jacobs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. They are 23rd against fantasy running backs. He did have veteran limited practices Thursday and Friday, but it does say like veteran day off or veteran, load management or whatever on the injury report. One more practice today for Josh Jacobs on Saturday because they play on Monday. Hopefully he gets in a full practice and he's good to go with that calf injury. Expect him to just be fine. The Eagles are a big-time run funnel defense. They are top 10 in literally every pass defense metric that you can look at, but they are about league average against the run or worse in every run defense category. So if the Green Bay is going to win this game, it's probably going to be on the back of Josh Jacobs. Keep an eye on his workload too, because his snaps have decreased in the past 3 games from his season total. Maybe it's because he's been dealing with that calf. Maybe Emmanuel Wilson's just been playing really well, and that's why they've been giving him a little bit more work, but just keep an eye on Josh Jacobs going forward. Number 8 running back for me is Saquon Barkley in that same game on Monday Night Football at the Green Bay Packers. They are 4th against fantasy football running backs, although they did just get decimated by Rico Dowdle a week ago. The Eagles are not favored in Green Bay. In the Matchups That Matter video, when this line opened, the Eagles were actually favorites on the road in Green Bay. But now the Green Bay, I believe, is a 1.5-point favorite in this game. 16th ranked rushing EPA defense, 20th in success rate allowed, and they are one of the best defenses against the pass in football. So I would imagine if the Eagles are going to be successful in this game, it will be on the back of Saquon Barkley. Both teams going to have to run the ball, probably going to end up being a shorter game as a result of it. Number 9 running back for me in my rankings is Kyren Williams versus the San Francisco 49ers on the road. They are 22nd against fantasy football running backs. Last time these two teams played, Kyren Williams had 10 targets the last time they faced the 49ers. In that game, if you guys recall on Thursday night, Blake Corum fumbled on the first drive and was basically benched after that. And it was also Kyren Williams' season high, in snap share on this season. So I would say recently that Blake Corum has inched himself a lot closer to Kyren Williams' workload. In back-to-back weeks, Kyren Williams has been below 70% of the snaps. It's not a worry that he's going to lose his job necessarily. We expect Kyren Williams still to be the starter here, but as a Kyren manager in our listener league, I would rather see him out there 80-90% of the time because he is typically a workload play, and I'd rather Corum just be a handcuff, but he's actually carved out a nice little 10-plus carry role on games where he's running the football well, and McVay has kind of been susceptible to giving him carries as long as he's running well. Number 10 running back for me is Rico Dowdle versus the New Orleans Saints. I mean, Rico Dowdle, welcome to the RB1 territory, man. With the way he's playing, it's really hard not to rank him this high. The Saints are 18th against fantasy football running backs, and they are first as an offense, the Carolina Panthers, in neutral script run rate. So they are taking the football out of Bryce Young's hands, which is probably a good idea considering he's due for his government mandated turnover in the first quarter every single week. With the Packers getting wiped by Carolina last week, this team is a real threat to run on anybody because Carolina coming into that game was running the ball only well when Rico Dowdle was the starter, and Green Bay coming into that game was third in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. So the fact that Rico Dowdle, anytime he's gotten the starting job, has been a top 2 weekly finisher all 3 games that he started, you got to feel pretty good about starting him. This week, you got a Saints team that has 1 win on their schedule. I expect a bell cow game on the ground for Rico Dowdle here. They talked about him being the starter coming into last week. He played 74% of the snaps and basically dominated the touches as well as he should have because he's playing outstanding. Number 11 running back for me is Quinshon Judkins at the New York Jets, the newly decimated on defense New York Jets. No more Quinnen Williams, their best interior defensive lineman. No more Sauce Gardner, their best corner. So I think that the Browns are going to have an easier time moving the ball against this defense, specifically on the ground. As I talked about already, no injury report for Quinshon Judkins. A lot of us probably a little bit worried coming out of the bye. He suffered an AC joint sprain or a shoulder injury coming into last week, but because of the bye, maybe he was able to rest up there. He did leave that game early before the bye, but in week 7, the last time we saw him fully healthy, he dominated the touches, dominated the snaps, and had a 26.4 fantasy point performance against the Miami Dolphins. So I would expect a rumbling Quinshon Judkins to do some damage to a team that just lost the teeth, really, of its defense. But similar to what I said with James Cook, because he was injured coming into this game from the bye week, maybe he could re-aggravate that injury. So make sure that Dylan Sampson is stashed if you have an empty bench spot there. So number 12, Derrick Henry at the Minnesota Vikings, the number 9 ranked fantasy football defense against running backs. I think the big dog might run into a doggy gate here because the Vikings not only lead the NFL in pressure rate, so as an offense, I think Baltimore could struggle because they're a bottom 6 offensive line at defending pressure, and the Vikings lead the NFL in pressure. So I think Lamar could be under duress in this game. I think Derrick Henry might not have a whole lot of inside rushing room because they're also very good inside the A and B gap at stopping the run. Brian Flores could draw up a masterclass here. I hope I'm wrong for the Ravens' sake because I have Lamar and Zay Flowers in the Flock League, but it wouldn't shock me if the Vikings won this game, and it also wouldn't shock me if the Ravens' offense kind of laid an egg here and kind of had a dud. They obviously can't because they're in position. They got to win pretty much every game going forward, but I do think Derrick Henry's high snap share, high fantasy production, high rushing production the last 2 games could come to a halt, and he will probably need a touchdown to save his day in this one. My running back 13 already played. That was on Thursday Night Football, Ashton Genty against the Denver Broncos. He had 15.3 fantasy points in that game, which is pretty solid, especially considering the matchup. It was on the road in Denver. It was a low-scoring game. Just worth noting, though, that the elite workload continued. Coming out of the bye, he had 90% of the snaps, and I talked about him as a buy low on Wednesday for that reason, and then he followed that up in Week 10 with 88% of the snaps, despite them losing most of that game. So very good news for Ashton Genty managers going forward. It looks like he's an every week bell cow, which is exactly what you wanted. Geno Smith has just got to play way better than he's been playing as of late. So moving into the B tier of running backs, aka the high-end RB2s, who for most of you guys in 12-man leagues will be every week starters. Trevion Henderson at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 17th ranked run defense, is my number 14 running back. The positives with Trevion Henderson are this: 75% snap share last week with Ramondre Stevenson out. He is out yet again. 70% route share in that game as well, especially this week against Tampa Bay, who allowed the most receiving yards in the league to opposing running backs. That is great news for Trevion Henderson. I think we could see a lot of total yardage. We could see a lot of receiving yardage specifically. The negatives, though, is that he did not get the goal line carry. That was Terrell Jennings, and he's gotten very few goal line carries all season. He has just 9% of the teams inside the 5 rushing attempts. So this is a back that you probably are going to need big plays from, receiving work from, but I do think in this game environment he should get it because our linebackers can't cover anybody, and it's been evidenced by every running back that goes up against us who has a receiving skill set doing very well. Number 15 running back for me is in that same game, Rachaad White versus the New England Patriots. Rachaad White saw reduced usage pre-bye week. They talked about coming into that Saints game, they said they wanted to give Sean Tucker more work, and part of it was because Sean Tucker went off against the Saints last year for like 36 fantasy points, and we saw Rachaad White get a reduced role. But prior to that, in the 3 games that Bucky Irving has been out for, the role that Rachaad White has gotten has been like 70% of the snaps, 70+% of the routes, and I think that he'll return to that role coming out of the bye. Got a little bit of rest under his belt. The Bucs could also get their starting right tackle back, Luke Gadecki, for this game. He was practicing. He has been on the shelf since week 2 against the Houston Texans, and he is a Pro Bowl caliber right tackle and a big part of our run game. So if Rachaad White has his starting right tackle back, That could really help out the rushing game here. Sean Tucker being somewhat ineffective versus the Saints, 3.5 yards per carry. I expect White to be back up to that 70+% of the snaps, 70+% of the routes, large majority of the receiving volume. 64.5 is his number for rushing plus receiving yards, and in tandem with Trevion Henderson, who I like him to go higher than his receiving yards. I do think with that weeks 5 to 7 workload coming out of the bye, I expect Rachaad White and Trevion Henderson to be heavily involved as receivers. So I like them both to go higher than their total yardage for Rachaad and then their receiving yardage for Trevion Henderson coming out of this game here, and which should be the game of the week. The Patriots going up against the Bucs there. So number 16 running back for now is DeAndre Swift, because I'm assuming he plays based on the fact that it was a personal absence that caused him to be downgraded. If it was in fact a re-aggravation of his groin injury, he probably will be out for this game. But as of right now, I have him at RB16. If he is out, I'll probably have Kyle Monengai around the same range. So just keep in mind, if you have Monengai on your bench, this is where he would be if Swift is ruled out for this game. And I'll update my rankings in the pinned comment if we get some more news. 74% of the snaps, 81% of the carries, and 55% of the routes. That's what Monengai saw last week without DeAndre Swift out there. 22.8 PPR points as well. Monengai basically only subbed out on passing downs. Now, going into this game, assuming DeAndre Swift is healthy, which I think he is, they're 31st against the run, the New York Giants, and they are the worst run defense in football by every metric. So this is a very easy matchup. I expect Swift and Monengai, even if Swift is healthy, to basically be close to a 50-50 split, because we saw in week 6, 7, and 8, DeAndre Swift was playing just over 50% of the snaps overall over that stretch, 54%, and getting 52% of the carries, but he was performing at a high level. Ben Johnson's run game is starting to come into fold. It's starting to look like that final year in Detroit that Swift was there, where it was him and Jamal Williams kind of going back and forth, with Kyle Monengai playing that Jamal Williams role and DeAndre Swift as himself in Ben Johnson's offense here. So definitely a good start if he plays this week. It's a great matchup. But again, if he's out, Kyle Monengai sees an upgrade, and he would probably be ranked the highest of him, Trevion Henderson, and Rachaad White. I would probably put Monengai number 1, given the matchup that he has. Number 17 running back for me is Jaylen Warren at the Los Angeles Chargers. They are 15th against fantasy football running backs. Jaylen Warren, 20, 15, and 20 touches the last 3 games. He's basically getting all the work in Pittsburgh. Caleb Johnson's a non-factor. Kenny Gainwell's had his role decreased, especially on third down. This game is probably going to be a slugfest, and I would expect, as I've talked about already, and I'll talk about with Vidal, the Steelers' defense to really put pressure on Justin Herbert and the run game of the Chargers, and maybe Pittsburgh and Jaylen Warren actually have a pretty good game script here, because even though this game is on the road, I would imagine that in Los Angeles, where there's not a whole lot of fans, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers might actually make this a home game as far as how well their fans travel. So I do think that Pittsburgh should be able to take care of business in this one and maybe upset the Chargers, because they're actually underdogs in this game, but I actually think they could win this game by like a touchdown or something. So if you're looking for a spread pick, I do think that the Steelers will cover 3 points pretty easily. Number 18 running back for me is Travis Etienne at the Houston Texans. They are 10th against fantasy football running backs. This is a really gross game environment, because on the Texans side, you don't have CJ Stroud. On the Jaguars side, you don't have Brian Thomas Jr. or Travis Hunter. So Etienne, because of those receivers being out, could see increased receiving work coming out of the bye. He ran a season-high 50% of the routes, and he had 27 touches last week as well. So I mentioned last week going into last week's game that Liam Cohen would probably want to emphasize getting the run game going coming out of the bye, because that's how he was in Tampa Bay, and I expect him to continue doing that. So hopefully we get another 22 plus carries and 5 plus targets for Travis Etienne if you guys are Etienne managers, because in this game he's going to need it, because Houston is a very good defense overall, but they are a little bit more susceptible to the run than pass. So it is possible that Travis has, a pretty good game in this one. Number 19 running back for me is Breece Hall. And ironically, I would have been going up against Travis Etienne in the Flock League for Mason, but he traded him away in a package deal to get Breece Hall. So these guys are basically back-to-back in my rankings. Breece Hall gets the 2nd-ranked Cleveland Browns run defense, and they are very good against fantasy football running backs. They're one of 3 teams in the NFL allowing 3 or less touchdowns to the position, the Rams being one of those other teams as well. The lowest receiving yardage and the fewest total yardage to the running back position as well. And if you guys have been following Breece Hall's season so far, it has been, when he has a good matchup, he plays well. Cowboys, Bengals, those type of matchups, he's been fine. But when he doesn't have a good matchup, he lays an egg. And it's because the Jets are just not good enough to move the ball consistently on offense. So they need a bad defense that they're going up against to be able to do that. Thankfully, Garrett Wilson will be back in this game. They just traded for Adonai Mitchell. It looks like Justin Fields is going to start. I think Breece Hall could be okay in this game, but I do worry that the Browns defense is going to be a little bit too much for the Jets to overcome. Number 20 rated running back in my rankings was J.K. Dobbins, who played on Thursday Night Football. He saw his usual workload of 70+% of the carries, 55% snap share. He scored 9.4 fantasy points on TNF, but J.K. Dobbins did suffer a foot injury in Week 10. We're still waiting on a second opinion and what kind of the severity of that injury is. If it's severe or if it's enough to keep him out for some time, then RJ Harvey is going to end up probably winning people leagues or at least be very, very good during the duration of time that J.K. Dobbins is out. So moving into the next couple of running backs here, these are the low-end RB2s. Kenneth Walker, the first guy that I have listed, versus the Arizona Cardinals coming out of the bye. Kenneth Walker saw a 13-9 opportunity split between him and Zach Charbonnet, so he got 59% of the total opportunities of the backfield. He got double the long down and distance usage and 2-minute drill snaps as Zach Charbonnet, and he ran more routes than him for the first time all year. All of those things that I just said, opportunity share, long down and distance split, 2-minute drill split, and route share, all season highs for Kenneth Walker when Zach Charbonnet has been on the field. So maybe we're seeing a shift in this backfield coming out of the bye. Kenneth Walker facing the 21st ranked Arizona Cardinals defense. The Seahawks are favored by a touchdown. They're implied for a lot of points. Walker is an ascending asset right now. If you can buy him on the low, I think he's not a bad option to go after. There's not a ton that you feel great about with Kenneth Walker because Charbonnet, yes, has gotten the red zone work. Charbonnet, yes, has eaten into his carries and whatnot. But this usage that we saw coming out of the bye is RB2 territory usage, especially when you're really good like Kenneth Walker is and you can break off long runs and you can get some receiving volume, because coming into last week, Walker and Charbonnet had combined for 15 total targets on the season together. So this is a situation where we saw them throw the ball to the running back position a little bit more. And I do think that Kenneth Walker can have a nice game in this one. So I like him actually to go higher than 13.5 for his longest carry, especially if he's going to be getting more of them. That is this week's entry. If you guys are wondering, anyone who uses code FSE over on Underdog can get $100 in bonus funds on their first $5 play when you use our code, which is linked down below in the pinned comment and the description. You also get an Aaron Rodgers gimme pick to add into this entry, and make sure to check your lobby for promos. Get started using the link in the pinned comment or in the description of this video. So Kenneth Walker, I've already kind of decided it. If you guys are following the Flock League, he, Kamani Vidal, and Tyrone Tracy was who I was deciding between in my RB2 spot this week, and I am going with Kenneth Walker given the recent trends, the matchup, etc. David Montgomery at the Washington Commanders. I don't always get everything right. There's definitely stuff I get wrong literally every single week, but I am certifiably always right on David Montgomery. This season, I have not been wrong on him once as far as if he's going to have a good game or if he's going to have a bad game. He needs to be in your lineup this week because this game has David Montgomery 2+ touchdowns written all over it. 8-point favorites against the team starting its backup quarterback, coming off a shit stomping at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. This is a top 6 defense in allowing total yardage to the running back position. This is a David Montgomery game. So you want David Montgomery in your fantasy football lineups if you can help it. Number 23 running back is Kamani Vidal, who, as I talked about kind of already, don't expect a great game from him. Versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are 11th against fantasy football running backs. I have concerns for 3 reasons. Number 1, he had 3 points against the Titans last week, and he's been very up and down as far as how good he's been week over week, Kamani Vidal. Number 2, the Chargers are 32nd in run blocking per PFF, and they do not have Joe Alt. He is out for the season. Of course, Rashawn Slater already been out for the season. Mekhi Becton been banged up. Trey Pipkin's been banged up. This offensive line's just so battered, and the Steelers just stuffed Jonathan Taylor, who was on a tear. 3 touchdowns in multiple games this year. If they can stuff Jonathan Taylor, what are they going to do to Kamani Vidal? And number 3, Vidal is kind of a hot hand starter. He's not really the starting running back. He, if he gets going, will be the starting running back, and he played most of the snaps last week, but Jarrett Patterson outcarried him, and Jarrett Patterson was running the ball better than Kamani Vidal was a week ago. So I'm a little bit worried that if he's not running the ball well, then we see Jarrett Patterson get carries. We see other running backs get carries. So Kamani Vidal, be careful with him. He's not a must start just because of the workload. Number 24 running back here for me is Tyrone Tracy, who is the other member of my Flock League team. Chicago Bears are 25th against the run. Tracy is also probably a hot hand starter, very similar to Kamani Vidal. Singletary was that guy last week who outcarried him and outsnapped him. The good thing is, though, we have a long history of Tyrone Tracy being the starting running back for this team because he started for for them from week 5 to 18 last year when Devin Singletary was healthy, and the Bears are a lot easier of a matchup than they were going up against last week. Possible weather concerns in this game, could be a run-heavy script in general, and I will say if you guys are looking for a cheap running back, let's say you lost somebody due to injury and you're not looking to pay up big time for a running back option, Tyrone Tracy's not a bad guy to go send an offer for, because a lot of people probably think that Devin Singletary is going to be a major part of this backfield. It'll be a part of this backfield, but I don't think it'll be a major part of this backfield going forward. Next up, I have Woody Marks versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 8th against fantasy football running backs. I mean, with Davis Mills, you can probably expect some checkdowns. PPR numbers would be great, but yeah, Woody Marks, not exciting. This Texans offense is bad. The Jags are also the best red zone defense in all of football right now as far as success rate to opposing running backs in the red zone. And the snap share has been fine for Woody Marks coming out of the bye, but it hasn't been great because he is still splitting carries with Nick Chubb, who is going to be healthy for this game. Number 26, I have Alvin Kamara at the Carolina Panthers closing out this year. 14th against fantasy football running backs. It's so hard to be as bad as Alvin Kamara was last week. 9 opportunities, right? Not a huge workload, but 9 opportunities is something. He had 0.7 fantasy points. I think I could have 0.7 fantasy points on 9 opportunities in the NFL. So Kamara having a better matchup this week, but God, the only way you can start this guy is because the Panthers are brutal at stopping up the middle runs. And I talked about that on the Matchups That Matter video. 5.14 yards per carry, A and B gap runs, which ironically is the second most run rate in the NFL for the New Orleans Saints, even though they don't really have a bunch of good early between the tackles runners. So the second tendency that the Saints have, maybe they're going to be more effective up the middle in this game, and Alvin Kamara has a bounce back. I wouldn't hold your breath on it, but if you have to throw him out there, I don't think he's a bad option. Next up, I have the high-end RB3s, which I can kind of speed through here because hopefully you don't have to start these guys. Aaron Jones versus the Baltimore Ravens, great matchup, 28th against fantasy football running backs. And it sounds like he's gearing up to play for this game. This is going to be a close call. Really monitor this news. Is he limited? Is he on a pitch count, etc.? I do think that he's a risky play because he could re-aggravate that shoulder injury. Of the two of them, I prefer Jones, assuming he's healthy. But if Jones is on a pitch count, if Jones is out for the game, then I would launch Jordan Mason probably all the way up to the Breece Hall territory where I was talking about before, assuming Jones is out for this game. But monitor the news. Like I said, I will probably have these guys change from now until Sunday morning when we get more information on the status of Aaron Jones. As of right now, I have him ranked as if he'll play and be kind of coming in a little bit questionable. That's how I'm ranking him because I think that's the most likely scenario. Number 28, RJ Harvey locked into my lineup on Thursday Night Football. Didn't have a great game after 2 great games in a row, but that's because he doesn't have a great workload. However, with J.K. Dobbins' injury, he might have a great workload going forward. So obviously, if you are stashing RJ Harvey, you probably feel great about that. Number 29 ranked running back is Kyle Menengai. This is assuming, of course, that DeAndre Swift is active. If DeAndre Swift is out for this game or on a pitch count or something, Kyle Menengai also launches himself all the way up to the Trevion Henderson, Rachaad White territory. Assuming that's the case, given the New York Giants running back matchup, he should run about 50% of the carries, 50% of the total touches. So you can definitely start him if you had to, even if Swift is active. Number 30 ranked running back is Charbonnet. Pretty straightforward again. Kenneth Walker is getting a little bit more work than he was before. Charbonnet a little bit less work than he was before, but you could lock into a touchdown with Zach Charbonnet given that he has been the team's goal line back, getting 69% of the teams inside the 5 attempts this season. Number 31, Jordan Mason. Again, assuming Aaron Jones is active, this is where he would rank for me, but if Aaron Jones is out, I would launch him up a couple of spots, probably about 10 spots, assuming Aaron Jones is out for that game, but if he is playing, Jordan Mason, more of like a desperation play. Same goes for Bill. He's been absolutely brutal this year, especially over the last couple of games. So you cannot trust him really in any regard. He cannot be trusted. So yeah, that's basically the D tier of running backs. And then if you need some like truly desperation plays here, you got Devin Singletary, Amari DiMercado, Tyler Algier, Byshell Tootin, Bam Knight, Nick Chubb, and Chuba Hubbard. I would say of this group, the highest ceiling is DiMercado or Bam Knight, depending on who gets the workload. It looks like it's going to be DiMercado, but we don't know for sure. Devin Singletary, again, maybe he is the back to own in New York. I don't think he will be, but maybe he is. Tyler Algier could punch in a touchdown. Byshell Tootin, maybe a big play. Nick Chubb, punch in a touchdown maybe, and then Chuba Hubbard, because Rico Dowdle is entering that game with an injury, maybe he re-aggravates that quad and Chuba Hubbard gets a little bit more work, or it's just a negative game script and Chuba Hubbard catches some passes. So those are my top 40 running backs. Let me know down below what you guys thought. How did I help you set your fantasy football lineups? Let me know any questions you have. I'll try and answer as many as I can. Leave a like down below if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also check out our pick'em entry if you guys want to tail that. That'll be linked down below in the pinned comment. All the updates for the injuries will be linked link down below in the pinned comment as well. And make sure, if you want all of our rankings, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, every single week, help you set your lineups, make sure you got the best possible lineup out there. Check out flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE to start your 7-day free trial today. You can use our rankings. Obviously, you go to week 10. You can see my quarterback rankings, my running back rankings, my wide receiver rankings, my tight end rankings. You can go to our My Teams feature and check out how you're doing in your specific league. This example is of the Flock League here. You can see my team in there. And you can also use our trade calculator, make trades, and adjust the trade settings of your league to specifically a redraft league or specifically a 3 wide receiver start league, so on and so forth. That will be all available to you just on that 7-day free trial. You can get a lot of benefit there. And of course, if you decide you want to keep subscribing to the site, you can get a package at that point. Annual Mother Flockers get a free team review, and monthly subscribers and season pass subscribers also get access to some trade question vouchers, start set vouchers, and all that good stuff. So if that interests you, check it out down below in the description. But with that being said, peace out. I'll talk to you soon.